Reflection can be a dangerous thing when the past is something you've been trying to outrun for years. Witness the chrome-sharp reality of justice as it finally catches up to those who thought they were safe. Subscribe today and watch the ultimate price of deception unfold.
The moment I walked through the front door of my mother's house, I knew something was wrong. My suitcase was still in my hand. I had been on a plane for 11 hours. I had not slept. I had not eaten anything except a bag of pretzels somewhere over the Atlantic. And the first thing I saw when I stepped into the living room was my sister sitting on the couch, scrolling her phone, wearing a brand new watch I had never seen before. She looked up at me and smiled. Not the smile of someone who had missed me. The smile of someone who had been waiting. "You're back early," she said. I was not back early. I was back exactly when I said I would be back. I had sent the dates to my mother 3 weeks ago. I had confirmed them again the week before. My sister knew exactly when I was coming home. I set my suitcase down. "Where is Mom?" "Grocery store." She went back to her phone. "There's food in the fridge." I stood there for a moment looking at her. Something in my chest felt like a cord pulled too tight. I could not explain it. I just knew. The way you sometimes know a smell before you can name it. Something had happened while I was gone. Something she was not going to tell me. I went upstairs to my old room, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened my laptop. I had been working in Dublin for 14 months. A contract position with a financial consulting firm. The kind of job that does not come twice. Before I left, I had done everything right. I had set up automatic payments on my condo. I had forwarded my mail to my mother's address. And because my sister had asked, because she had sat across from me at dinner and said she needed a fresh start, needed somewhere stable while she got back on her feet, I had added her name to my lease as an emergency contact and given her a key. Not ownership, not authority. A key. For emergencies. I had been very clear about that. I opened my email first, nothing unusual. Then I opened the portal for my condo building. I logged in the way I always did, just to check on things, the unit status, the payment history, the screen loaded, and I stopped breathing. The unit was listed as sold. I stared at the words for a long time. I told myself I was misreading it. I told myself it was a glitch, a display error, some kind of administrative mistake. I refreshed the page. The words did not change. Sold. Transfer completed. New owner on record. My name was not on it. I sat very still in that room where I had grown up, in the house where my mother still kept my school photos on the hallway wall. And I felt something shift inside me. Not panic. Not yet. Something quieter and colder than panic. The feeling of a floor dropping away beneath your feet before you have time to scream. I went back downstairs. My sister was still on the couch. She had kicked her feet up now. The new watch caught the afternoon light. "Tell me about my condo," I said. She did not look up immediately. That pause, that half second where she decided how to play it, told me everything I needed to know before she even opened her mouth. "I was going to talk to you about that," she said. "Talk to me now." She set her phone down and looked at me with an expression I can only describe as rehearsed patience. Like she had practiced this conversation. Like she had run through it in the mirror and decided that calm was the right strategy. "The building made an offer to buy out the unit," she said. "A really good offer. And I had the power of attorney document you signed before you left, so I was able to handle it on your behalf. I was going to send you the money, but there were some expenses first, and—" "Stop," I said. She stopped. I never signed a power of attorney. The rehearsed patience flickered. Just for a moment. Then she smoothed it back into place. "You did," she said. "Before you left. You were stressed. You had a lot of paperwork. You probably don't remember. I am a contract auditor," I said. "I have been reviewing financial documents professionally for 8 years. I do not sign things I do not remember signing." She picked her phone back up. "I'm not going to argue with you. Where is the money?" "There were expenses. My condo sold for how much?" She did not answer. I already knew. I had seen the transfer amount in the portal before the screen timed out. $430,000. My condo. The one I had saved for 6 years to buy. The one I had repainted myself on a weekend in October, with a roller brush and 2 cans of warm white. The one with the window in the kitchen that faced east so the morning light came in clean and gold and made even bad days feel like they had potential. $430,000. Gone. My mother came home an hour later. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open and my hands flat on the surface in front of me. When she walked in and saw my face, she set her grocery bags down slowly, the way you set something down when you know a conversation is coming that you cannot avoid. "You need to stay calm," she said. Before I had said a single word, "You need to approach this like a family." "My condo was sold without my consent," I said. "That is a crime." "Your sister was struggling." My mother sat down across from me. Her voice had the tone she had used my whole life to end conversations before they started. Firm, tired, final. She needed help. You were gone. You had this asset sitting there and she needed... It was not her asset. "You're being rigid. I'm being robbed." My mother flinched. Then her jaw set. "That is a terrible thing to say about your sister." I looked at her for a long moment. My mother, who had driven me to every AP exam in high school, who had proofread my college essays at midnight, who was now sitting across from me telling me that losing $430,000 was me being rigid. "Where did the money go?" I asked. She had debts. She had... Where did the money go? My mother looked at the table. Some of it went to debts. Some of it she invested. She put some away for... Invested in what? Silence. "Mom." "Crypto," my mother said quietly. "And a trip. Her and her boyfriend went to Tulum for 2 weeks. She said she needed it for her mental health." I closed my laptop. I stood up. I picked up my bag and my keys and I walked out of that house without saying another word, because if I had stayed one more minute I would have said things that could not be unsaid, and I needed to be very careful right now. I needed to be precise. I needed to think like the auditor I was trained to be and not like the daughter who had just been gutted. I checked into a hotel 4 miles away. I ordered room service I barely touched, and then I sat down and I started working. The first thing I did was request the full transaction record from the condo buildings management company. I had worked in financial compliance long enough to know that every transaction leaves a trail, and the people most likely to commit financial fraud are also the people most likely to be sloppy about it. They count on intimidation and family loyalty to cover the gaps. They do not count on the person they stole from being someone who does this for a living. The management company emailed me back within 2 hours. They had received what appeared to be a valid power of attorney document authorizing my sister to act on my behalf. They had processed the sale in good faith. They were sorry for any confusion. They attached the document. I opened it. The signature was mine. Or rather, it was a very good imitation of mine. The kind of imitation that would fool a distracted notary at a busy office. The kind that would not fool me. There were 3 small differences I spotted within 90 seconds. The angle of the loop in my capital letter. The way I cross my T's. I do it with a slight downward pull to the right, a habit I picked up in college, completely unconscious, completely consistent. And the date format. I always write dates in a specific order because of my work in international finance. The document used a different format, a small thing. The kind of small thing that gets missed unless you know what you're looking for. She had forged my signature. She had found a notary willing to stamp a document they did not witness. Or she had forged that too. I made a folder on my desktop and labeled it with the date. I saved everything. The transaction record. The power of attorney document. Screenshots of the building portal. I wrote out a timeline, every detail I could remember, every date and amount and conversation. I had done this 100 times for clients. Now I was doing it for myself. I called a real estate attorney the next morning. She listened to everything I said without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "You understand? This is serious," she said. "I understand completely. The power of attorney is almost certainly fraudulent. The notary is implicated. Your sister is looking at felony charges. Potentially multiple counts. I know. And you want to proceed?" I thought about the kitchen window. The morning light. 6 years of savings. My mother's voice saying you're being rigid. "I want to proceed," I said. The next 10 days were the strangest of my life. I was staying in a hotel, working remotely, meeting with an attorney, and at the same time receiving daily calls from my mother asking me to come home, to talk to my sister, to handle this privately, to think about what this would do to the family. My sister sent me 2 texts. The first one said she had made a mistake and she was sorry. The second one said I was being vindictive and she hoped I could find it in my heart to forgive her. I read both texts and saved them to the folder. My attorney filed a complaint with the county recorder's office to flag the fraudulent transfer. She contacted the management company to preserve all records. She submitted a formal complaint to the state notary oversight board. And she connected me with a detective at the financial crimes unit who had a very calm voice and very sharp eyes, and who, when I walked him through my documentation, said, "This is one of the cleaner cases I've seen. You did good work. I want to be honest about something." There was a moment, not a long moment, but a real one, when I sat alone in my hotel room at 11 o'clock at night and thought about letting it go. Not because I thought what my sister did was acceptable. Not because I believed my mother's framing that I was being greedy or rigid or unforgiving, but because I had grown up with my sister, because I remembered being 7 years old and sharing a bedroom with her and staying up too late whispering about nothing, because some part of me that I cannot fully explain still loved her even after everything, the way you can love something that has broken you because you loved it before it did. But then I thought about the forged signature, the deliberate forgery, the planning that required. She had not made a panicked mistake. She had not borrowed money she intended to return. She had researched what documents she needed, found someone willing to notarize them, executed the sale, and spent $430,000 on debts and crypto and a vacation. And when I came home, she had smiled at me. She had already been prepared. That is not a mistake. That is a choice. I picked up my phone and texted my attorney that I was ready to move forward with everything. The confrontation I had not planned happened anyway, the way those things do. My mother called me on a Thursday afternoon and said she wanted to have dinner. Neutral ground, she said. She just wanted to talk. She said my sister was coming and that the three of us needed to resolve this before it went further. I should have said no. I want to be clear that I should have said no, but something in me needed to look at my sister across a table one more time before this became fully official and irreversible. So I said yes, and I drove to the restaurant she had chosen. They were already seated when I arrived. My mother looked tired. My sister looked like she had spent extra time on her appearance, which she does when she is nervous. There was a basket of bread in the center of the table that no one had touched. I sat down. The server came and I ordered water. My sister smiled at me, that same smile from the couch, the practiced one. "Thank you for coming," my mother said. She sounded like she was opening a meeting. "I think if we can just talk through this calmly. I've already filed the complaint with the county recorder," I said. "The financial crimes unit has my documentation. The notary board is investigating the stamp on the power of attorney." My mother's face went still. My sister's smile dropped. "What you're doing," my sister said, and her voice had gone from practiced calm to something thinner and harder, "is destroying this family over money." "You sold my home," I said. "You forged my signature. You spent the proceeds on a vacation. I was going to pay you back. With what? The crypto that lost 60% of its value? The frequent flyer miles from Tulum? You have always thought you were better than me." Her voice cracked on the last word, and I recognized the technique. I had grown up with it. The tears that came right at the moment the argument was turning against her. "You left. You went to Dublin and you left, and the rest of us had to manage, and I was drowning, and you had this asset just sitting there." "It was my home," I said. "Not an asset. My home. You weren't living in it. That is not how property law works, and you know it." My mother put her hand on my sister's arm. Then she looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Something between grief and anger, and something I can only call the look of someone who has made a choice and is living inside the consequences. "If you go through with this," my mother said, "you will lose your sister." I looked at her for a long time. "I already lost my sister," I said. "The day she forged my name." I left money on the table for my water and I walked out. My sister was arrested 6 days later. The detective called me at 7:45 in the morning to let me know. I was already awake, already dressed, already on my second cup of coffee. I said thank you. I sat with the feeling for a moment. It was not the satisfaction I expected. It was something quieter. Something that felt less like winning and more like a door closing on a room I had been standing in too long. The legal process that followed was not fast and was not simple, but the documentation I had provided made it significantly more straightforward than it might have been. The notary who had stamped the fraudulent power of attorney was a woman who worked out of a strip mall office and who, when confronted with the evidence, cooperated immediately in exchange for reduced charges. She confirmed that my sister had come to her with the document already prepared, had signed it in front of her claiming to be me, and had paid her $300 in cash. $300. That was what my signature had been worth to my sister. The sale of the condo was voided through the court. The buyer, who was, it turned out, an investor who had purchased 3 other units in the building, was entitled to recover his funds through the title insurance policy that had been issued at closing. He was not required to pay again. I want to be specific about this because I know it is the question people have. He did not lose his money. The title insurance exists precisely for situations like this. The fraudulent transfer was unwound. The property was returned to my name. Of the $430,000, approximately $280,000 was recovered through the civil judgment. My sister's crypto investments had lost value. Some of the debt repayments could not be clawed back. The Tulum trip was obviously unrecoverable. My attorney was pragmatic about it. "This is often how it goes," she told me. "You get most of it. You live with the rest." I sold the condo 3 months after getting it back. I could not imagine living there the same way. It was still beautiful. The window still faced east, but something about it felt like a place where something bad had happened, and I did not want to start every morning in a place that reminded me of that. I bought a smaller place in a different neighborhood with a balcony that faces west instead. The sunset from it is genuinely spectacular. I sit out there sometimes in the evenings and I think about all of it. My mother called me twice after the arrest. The first call, she cried and said I had ruined everything. The second call, about 3 weeks later, was different. She was quieter. She said she knew she hadn't handled things right. She said she was sorry. She did not ask me to drop the charges. She did not tell me I was being rigid. She just said she was sorry and that she loved me and that she hoped someday we could find a way back to each other. I told her I loved her too. I told her I needed time. That is still where things stand. My sister pled guilty to 1 count of real estate fraud and 1 count of forgery. She received a suspended sentence, 3 years of probation, and was ordered to make restitution payments on the judgment. I do not know how her relationship with her boyfriend survived or didn't. I don't know what she does now or where she lives. I have her blocked on everything, not out of hatred, or not only out of hatred, but because I know myself well enough to know that I cannot heal next to someone who hurt me that deliberately and that specifically. There is a thing that happens after a betrayal like this, and I say this not for sympathy but because I think it is true and I think some of you know it. The financial loss is real. The legal process is real. But the hardest part is not those things. The hardest part is the restructuring, the quiet work of figuring out who you are now that you know what you know. I had spent 31 years believing my family was fundamentally safe, that whatever disagreements we had, whatever dysfunction lived in the corners of our relationships, there was a floor, a bottom beneath which no one would go. My sister went below the floor, and my mother, for a time, handed her the ladder to do it. That changes something, not everything, but something. What I know now, that I did not know when I landed at that airport with my suitcase and my 11 hours of bad sleep, is this: trust is not a gift you give because someone is family. It is something that is built and maintained, and that can be lost, not because you are rigid, not because you are greedy, but because the other person decided to burn it down. I am not the person who walked into that living room anymore. I am not the person who stood frozen at the condo portal, unable to process what she was seeing. I am something steadier than that now. Something that has been tested in a specific way and has come through it. I kept the folder, all the documentation, organized by date, labeled, backed up in 3 places the way I back up everything important. Not because I think I will need it, because it reminds me that I handled it. That when something impossible happened, I did not collapse and I did not beg and I did not let anyone tell me that losing my home was me being difficult. I handled it the only way I knew how, and that, in the end, was enough. There is something I have learned about the way consequences work, not as punishment handed down from somewhere above, but as the natural result of choices made and unmade over time. What my sister did not happen in a single moment. It was built decision by decision, each one smaller than the last, until the whole structure was in place and she simply walked through the door she had been quietly constructing for months. And what I did was the same. Every professional skill I had developed, every late night I spent learning to read documents the way other people read faces, every time I chose precision over shortcuts, That too was built decision by decision. I did not become someone who could find a forged signature in 90 seconds by accident. I became that person because I had chosen over and over to develop something real inside myself rather than look for ways around the work. That is the thing about integrity. Not the word, but the actual practice of it. It compounds, the same way neglect compounds, the same way dishonesty compounds, the same way small ethical shortcuts add up until they become a forgery and arrest on a Thursday morning. Character is not a fixed thing you either have or do not have. It is the sum of what you choose when no one is watching, when it would be easier not to, when the shortcut is right there and no one would blame you for taking it. My sister thought she was taking a shortcut. She thought that the distance between us, 11 time zones, 14 months, an ocean, created a gap she could step into. What she did not understand is that the gap was never in the geography. The gap was in who she had been choosing to become, quietly, for years. And the day she signed my name to that document, she did not become a different person. She simply finished becoming the person she had already been building. I think about the version of myself that might have handled this differently. The version who might have accepted my mother's framing, that I was rigid, that I was greedy, that family is supposed to absorb this kind of wound and keep moving. That version would have been quieter. She would have swallowed something corrosive and called it grace. And the people who hurt her would have learned exactly nothing, because nothing they did had any weight. Accountability is not cruelty. Holding someone responsible for what they chose to do is not the same as hating them. I did not prosecute my sister because I wanted to destroy her. I did it because the alternative was to teach everyone in that room that what she did was survivable without consequence, and I was not willing to be the lesson that taught them that. What I kept after everything was not the money, though I am grateful for what was recovered. What I kept was the knowledge that I did not fold, that when something was taken from me and the people around me told me to accept it, I went back to my room, opened my laptop, and started building a case. That is not rigidity. That is the specific kind of strength that only gets made under pressure, and I would not trade it for anything my sister spent in Tulum.